This episode's a little different than the ones you've heard in the past. There are so many factors that go into supporting our incredible community that I wanted to share them with you. Things like research, speaking with different professionals, and all the unsexy things that go on behind the scenes that are super important to make sure that we feel supported. And on that note, I wanted to share this phone call that I had with Dr. Laurel Kincl of Oregon State University. She's leading a fisherman safety program, and it's just really beautiful to know that there are others outside the industry who truly care and that actually want to hear our opinions to know how we can better the fishing industry. Let's do this. I'm Megan, host of the Partners of Commercial Fishermen podcast. This show is dedicated to girlfriends, fiancés, and wives of commercial fishermen to connect and feel less alone. As we know, this lifestyle isn't for the faint of heart. So this is our space in the world to discuss the highs and lows of being in a romantic relationship with a fisherman. Because it's different than being a family member or friend. It just is. Join in to laugh, vent, and share stories with others who get your lifestyle. So what are you waiting for? Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Partners of Commercial Fishermen podcast. We have an amazing guest today, Dr. Laura Kincl, who is the Associate Professor and Associate Dean of Academic and Faculty Affairs at the College of Health at Oregon State University. What's extra special about this program is that Dr. Kincl has reached out. She's leading the FLIP program, which stands for the Fisherman-Led Injury Prevention Program for Life Jackets mobile program. Do I have that correct, Dr. Kincl?
Yeah, actually, we do a lot of work trying to support fishermen, and this is just our most recent project. And so we used our Fisherman-Led Injury Prevention Program for almost a decade here to identify what fishermen need to keep themselves safe and utilize their ideas, as well as help bring some maybe scientific evidence to help support their needs and to identify their needs.
That's great. I love that. And why this episode is special is because normally I send out questions in advance to our guests, but Dr. Kincl reached out to actually ask me questions to see what would be helpful for our community or what are some ideas on developing their approach with regional fishermen in Washington and Oregon. And I wanted to share this raw conversation because it shows how much people really do care about the commercial fishing industry and what goes on behind the scenes, the kind of conversations that we have that not many people get to hear about or see every day. So first of all, thank you so much for caring.
Thank you for caring. I think you do way more work to support this community. So it's so great to connect with you.
Thank you. But it definitely takes a whole village, as we know. And we
Absolutely.
We had the chance to meet at the Pacific Marine Expo last year, which was 2022. And I would love to know more about the FLIP. I went on the website. It's so great. I really love the downloadable PDFs you guys have and things that you make it really easy for people to understand safety measures and things like that. So could you first tell me how you got involved in this program?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been an effort with the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, as well as the U.S. Coast Guard, to identify opportunities to conduct research that then informs ways to protect fishermen. And my area of expertise is occupational health and safety, but my work with many different industries is you cannot do or make any effect on improving safety unless you engage the people that are actually doing the work and know what may help them. And so I started almost a decade ago, and I collaborate with Oregon Sea Grant, which is our extension agency here at our state-based effort to support commercial fisheries, as well as many other aspects along the coast. So I reached out to them and I said, what can I do that would actually help fishermen? And they were like, well, ask them. And so we developed this project of doing a survey and asking fishermen, maybe what caused their injuries, but also what they think keeps them safe. And so what you're talking about, those resources on our website, were things fishermen identified that might be helping them do hazard assessments on their vessels, but also how to write a crew agreement that maybe identifies what can be agreed upon, including safety measures, but also just the operations of the vessel, but also identifying, they said that greenhorns or new fishermen were often, potentially people that could use more information, understanding about the fishery. So we asked captains and we asked fishermen kind of what is essential that new fishermen should know about. And so we developed a resource for that. Another thing we developed was a first aid class. The Coast Guard requires that a crew member has first aid, but if they take their community Red Cross course, it actually is not very applicable for their environment out at sea and the work that they do. So we took wilderness first aid in information, or austere medicine, and we've developed a training program where we deliver this utilizing people that are trained in wilderness first aid as well as instructors. And we do the classes where you're actually on a vessel and practicing the skills needed to do first aid. And when we do the first aid classes, we also talk about the best way to do first aid is to actually prevent an injury from happening in the first place. And so kind of how to do assessments and think about the tasks they do, and maybe are there different ways they could do them, or utilizing different approaches or equipment or something. Is there ways that we can prevent injuries from happening in the first place?
Amazing. I really love how hands-on and actually on the scene it is, because it is definitely one thing to talk about what you're going to do and then actually perform the duties of what it takes to save your life or a crew member.
Exactly.
And also,
yeah,
please.
No, you just reminded me, one thing we do encourage is that the whole crew comes, because like you say, it's hard to imagine what you would do, but if you're practicing those skills with the crew, the better likelihood you will have that the crew will work together in the event of an emergency or a need for first aid.
Absolutely. I love that. And this actually reminds me of a conversation I recently had with a widow, Tammy Roberts, who started a foundation called the Seaworthy Foundation, and they're joining forces to make sure that fishing vessels are safe for everyone, including, even knowing that your zipper of your survival suit is working. I mean, just simple little
exactly.
It's like, oh, I've had the survival suit for years, but does
exactly.
it? You know what I mean? I mean,
yeah.
Simple things. And also, you mentioned the crew agreement. I feel not only, for the safety measures that you guys have, but the crew agreement is also great for mental health, in the sense of everybody knows what's going on. Everybody has, this is the percentage you're going to get. This is everything.
Exactly.
And honestly, Chris has not done that yet. And I downloaded y'all's crew agreement, and he's going to do it this year. So thank you very much for that.
I love it. And we can't take credit for it. What we did when fishermen identified the need, we kind of scoured what information was out there. And so I think you'll see on that document, we say, this was, adapted from, somebody else. And so I think it's just a way to share information. And I think that's great. I'm so glad it's useful for you.
I'll put all the links in the show notes so other people can take advantage of this as well, because it's just too good. So yeah, I guess from there, why did you email me, and what can I do to help?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. So our most recent work, one of the things that's also the beauty about doing this type of work is we are networked throughout the United States, various researchers as well as organizations that support commercial fishing safety and health. And so we talk, and I learned about a program that was done in New England called Life Jackets for Lobstermen. And this was a project that was done probably within the last 5 years. And it was an effort to take social marketing approaches to identify life jackets that fishermen would wear, and then bring it to them at a price and in a way that allowed them to try before they bought, and in a very convenient manner. And so it was so successful. And when I heard the researchers talking about that, I was like, why don't we have this program in other areas? Could I do this in my region, which I'm in Oregon? And so it's Oregon and Washington. And they were like, that would be so interesting to study if we take what we did and translate it across to different fisheries, different regions, so different cultures, and see if using kind of the same approach, but tailored to our area, would you be able to identify life jackets that fishermen would actually buy and wear? And so here we go. We're just starting this project, and I reached out to you. I'm also reaching out to other stakeholders, the people that make life jackets, the people that sell them, the retailers, various commodity groups that represent the marketing of the different fisheries, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, both in Oregon and Washington, as well as other safety and health professionals that have worked on providing life jackets to fishermen. We're also very interested in supporting our tribal fisheries. So we've reached out to the organizations that bring those tribal, that represent and bring those tribal fisheries resources and everything. And I have to say, everyone is so supportive and say, this is a great project and let's figure this out. And so what we're trying to do initially is just seeing how we can reach fishermen, and your podcast is one support, for fishermen where they get information. So we're just trying to see where fishermen get at their information in our region. We're also trying to identify which types, different fisheries have obviously different gear, different seasons, different conditions that they work in, night or day, and so we're trying to identify there's certain styles or designs of life jackets that won't get in the way of their work, are comfortable and are safe, that don't cause or introduce any additional safety risks like entanglement or anything like that. And so again, we're very many of the people that manufacture PFDs, or personal flotation devices, have donated different models and different sizes to us. And so when I met you at the Pacific Marine Expo last year, we literally just got notified that we were going to start this project. And so that was our first effort, to be at that venue, to have conversations with fishermen and just say, what do you think about life jackets, and why do you wear them, or why don't you wear them? And so we're just kind of gathering our information. And again, this is to tailor our program to identify what fishermen identify as, as a way that they would want to buy, not a barrier. Like how can we identify models that may work? And not all fishermen are alike. We don't expect like one design or one thing will work for everybody. And so we're trying to find different ones that might work. The other thing that I've heard from various people, because I've had a few of these conversations already, is that styles that maybe have other functions. And that was true with the lobstermen. The lobstermen really liked this design of life jacket that was a foam one. So, and it was integrated into basically the skins that they put on. So in the overalls, they would have the padding at their chest, and also padding at their back and padding at their knees. So in addition to providing life-saving buoyancy, if they go overboard, it actually helped them as they were working on the deck. As they lean against the vessel, they had some padding for their chest, even back in their back. They noticed when gear would hit them that the padding really helped. And so, and then also, we're also trying to identify other safety features, locating beacons or RF things, or lights, the reflectiveness, the colors. We're just trying to look at all the various factors in there and to hear kind of what they might think would help fishermen identify that it's a good resource. We also know that the price is an issue. It's always hard. Fishermen have so much gear and so many responsibilities just for their vessel. We understand. And this is yet another thing. So we're trying to see, with our project, we're able to subsidize a little bit, and we're able to work with as I mentioned, the retailers and the manufacturers of the flotation devices to see kind of what price point would be one that would actually allow fishermen to really buy into this, literally. And then we're trying to identify the lobstermen. They actually drove a van to each port and did an announcement and kind of did a marketing saying they were going to be there. And so they, would have a news media event to say that they're going to be in a certain port. And then they would literally sit at the port while the fishermen were going out and coming back in, and allowing them to try on the different designs, and they could buy it right there at a discount. And so we're trying to adapt that. Our coast is quite different. And we also have the luxury of having a retailer that's almost in every port, at least in Oregon, England's Marines. And so we're trying to see if we can develop a collaborative way that potentially might also be sustainable. Our project is 5 years, but what we hope is what we can do is identify a way to get fishermen to really buy into this, and then a way to sustain it more, you know, in the future. And I also think with life jackets, just like any equipment, there takes education. You have to understand how to maintain it. Like you were talking about the zippers on, on the, the immersion suits. It's exactly like that. It's a piece of equipment. And so what can we do to help support whatever maintenance they may need? And so my questions to you were kind of, you have experience with this community, like what can we do to make this, it's a hard sell. Like not everybody wears life jackets now, and that's for a reason. And so what are ways we can do to break down these barriers and to really reach fishermen with the information they need to make a good decision?
That's amazing. I mean, incredible kind of outreach that y'all are doing, and just bravo all around. I love that.
Thank you.
I asked Chris about this because we go as a partner of a commercial fisherman, and I'm sure a lot of women in my community and partners in my community understand all we care about is their safety, of course.
Of course.
That's on our minds all the time. And Chris, for Chris, it's the bulky factor and the entanglement, he has an ACR beacon that I forced him to get last year when his deckhand.
Good for you.
But so I call that his backup deckhand. But the one life jacket that he would use in Bristol Bay, and it was a vest. It was probably from the 80s. I'm not even kidding. It was a vest, but it was an inflatable vest. I'm not sure how that actually worked, but that is one that he wore. We actually lived on a sailboat together. We had the classic PFD that kind of, in a terrible description, is like a limp pool noodle. Like it feels like a pool noodle, and that is just too much for him to wear on the fishing boat. I don't know if it was at your booth, but there was there's a foam vest that was on the market.
Rogue. Probably you're talking about. Yeah.
A lot of the Bering Sea crabbers were using that, or that was the one that they were using because it was just such a easy slip on, non-bulky, very flush to the body life jacket that I think probably that would be more of Chris's thing. I love the idea that the lobstermen had about having the padding in their bibs. I think it's great. And in my head, I'm going, I wonder if Chris would think that would hinder his, mobility at all. I guess they have tried that. Chris, for lobster fishing, he does lobster traps, or pots, as people call it.
Of course.
So he has the main things that he worries about is he has the hauler that he has to link up, do all that stuff, and then actually move the traps out of the way. So that's how he works that's his 6 months out of the year, from October to March. But yeah, his thing is, I'm like, what do you do for, how do you make sure that you're going to be okay? He's like, don't fall overboard. I'm like, that's funny, but like, you're in the most dangerous profession in the world, civilian profession. So we need to figure this out.
Yep.
You forcing him to get that beacon came in handy. However, my concerns with that is the beacon is small. He can wear it, but he's, wearing it in the zipper of his bib, which is a whole thing, to actually, if he did fall in the water, then he has to flip it up and then press a button. So I get that it flips because they don't want you to accidentally, call the beacon if you don't need it. But for him, it's just, I don't want anything in my way. I don't need anything weighing me down. And it's so interesting to hear how different people in different fisheries would react to different. I would never even think about that. I would think, it's one size fits all, but you're right. It is not. And I'm wondering if there's a way for me. I could put like a poll, or if people want to reach out, they can go to support@meganwaldrop.com, email me or DM me on Instagram, and I can filter these answers to Dr. Kincl, and we can get more of a,
Yeah, I would love to hear what works for any fisherman, and that's a great idea.
And what kind of, when you mentioned the beacons, what kind of research have y'all gotten back about different kinds of beacon and satellite type of safety devices?
Yeah, there are some researchers, especially in Canada, that work because their shores are, a little more drastic, cliffs and stuff like that. And so they are worried that the signal, like even if a fisherman was out there, if there's a swell or a cliff or, a formation that then would block the signal. So they're doing some testing on that to identify what would work. We're still just now learning about them. So I don't know that I have kind of the magic, this one is the best one, but I think I've heard what you exactly explained, that if it has to be activated, if it's not self-activated, some of them do activate when they're hydrostatic. So when they hit the water, they automatically activate. So that might be a feature that you want to look into. But then also the problem of that is if you have work in very wet conditions and storms and stuff like that, it may be going off when you're not actually in the water. And so I think understanding how they work and understanding how to maintain them so that they work when you want them, because it's again an emergency. So it's not something you can expect when it's going to happen. So being prepared all the time. And that's why I mentioned RFs. I think there are some new technologies that are, can be tied with something that is in the wheelhouse, maybe, so that a captain understands when somebody goes overboard in case they're not notified. And so they can have a quicker response and then stay in the area and ensure that they can rescue whoever goes overboard. And so we're actually looking at different ways, and maybe not even associated with the life jacket, but integrated into, like you were saying, he puts it in the zipper of his bib or their boots that they wear. There's different ideas of how to facilitate being able to locate somebody immediately and be notified immediately when a change of status, when they go from being on the deck to being in the water. So I'm learning more about it. So I don't have a magic thing, but I think technologies are improving. And I think fishermen, a lot of people have told me, oh, fishermen, you can't talk to them. They have their way of doing things. But I actually have found that fishermen are very savvy and are really constantly learning about ways that they can improve their navigation, their gear. They're very innovative. And so hopefully through all of our work and trying to gather information, this is also a resource we can be to fishermen when they stop by to learn about life jackets. We can also maybe tap them into the latest information on various other things that are kind of related to preventing death when the worst happens and you go overboard.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I appreciate your term change of status from going on the boat to overseas. That sounds way less stressful to me than going overboard. No, that's so true.
Yeah.
I was wondering, could you, it leaves me right now, but what are the price ranges of the life jackets that people can get on the market right now?
Yeah, that is actually a great question. And it depends on the type. And I'm glad you mentioned inflatables. I think a lot of people find inflatables helpful because they are so slick. They're streamlined because they're not bulk. The bulkiness that you mentioned was one of the barriers. And so those are really great because they're not bulky. But then they have to have a canister and have to inflate. So those can cost up to, it can go up, but most of the styles that we're looking at may go up to $250, while other ones like the Rogue that you mentioned, that is quite popular. It's very streamlined, but it is foam. It, I think, had to go up in price, and also just everything with the supply chains and COVID have caused an increase in prices. And when I'm talking to manufacturers, they're trying to get those prices back down, and they're really working on that. But I think it can cost around 100 or 150.
Yeah, well worth their life, and good to know.
I think so, but
Absolutely.
yeah.
And yeah, our community is a great one to speak to because we're the ones that will gently with love make them do these things as much as we possibly can. And I was thinking of this might be a side note, but this is something I've been thinking of, and maybe this is a topic I need to bring up with a fishing boot company. But I'm wondering if there are drills to learn how to take your boots off in the water. That is one of the major, I think, hindrances for fishermen to stay afloat is that their boots fill up with water. And not only do their boots fill up with water, some of them have inserts called BAMAs, and it's like a wool-ish, I don't know if it's like a mixed wool insert to keep your feet tight and dry and whenever you're on deck. But that's my main concern is Chris is a great swimmer, but if his boots weigh
Yep.
I'm wondering if has ever been a type of drill to how to take your shoes off, or if you can, or I don't know, do they take a razor to it, or is that too dangerous and they'll cut themselves, like rip the boots off? Yeah,
this is a great question. Nobody has ever asked me that, and I will look into it. So I don't know the answer to that, and I can see how that would actually be something very useful, a skill to learn.
Thank you. I'm glad to put it out there, and thank you for listening, because even that might
you got, I'm glad to listen.
Awesome. Because I mean, even, that would go back to what kind of PFD they would wear that would make it easy for them to still like bend over and get that out, take the shoes off. That's like, take the shoes off. Chris tells me horror story about a guy in Bristol Bay. They were at the dock, actually docking the boat. And I think he was going to jump from the boat to the dock, slipped. And with people all around on the dock, he was struggling to get his head above water. And this is a seasoned fisherman. And thank God someone threw the life ring, but it's because his boots filled up. And yeah, I'm like, do I need to talk to Extra Tough and Grundens and be like, what's the drill? I mean,
yeah.
What do we do? Is there like a Velcro rip boot stitch? I don't know.
I will ask this question and I'll let you know for sure if I get an answer.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And so I guess what would be the best way for us to continue to help you? To filter in any kind of information that I get to you, if people write in via email or Instagram DMs, would that be helpful?
Yeah, that's actually super helpful. If you don't mind forwarding those to me, that would be great. And again, we're just trying to find, there's kind of 4 Ps. We're trying to find the product. So the life jacket, the price that is reasonable, that makes it affordable. The place that we are. So how do we reach them? How is most convenient? Our experience with fishermen is you can't bring them together. You got to go to where they are. So we're trying to identify where the best places to be in front of them so they can try them on and buy them. And then the promotion, like what speaks to fishermen, like what kind of, if we send a flyer to a port, like what does it need to look like? What would draw fishermen to actually pay attention? And I think you've already identified one. Obviously, wives and partners of fishermen are great ways to reach fishermen, but also if there's networks such as yourself or key people that are kind of the advocate in a certain port, if we can identify who they are, they might be a good way to reach fishermen and let them know that we'll be in the area and providing them this opportunity.
Great. This just came as you were speaking. Is there a way that partners could reach out and say, could we try a vest and then if purchase it and or send back if it doesn't work? I don't know if that would be too complicated, but since we are over the place.
Well, you bring up a good point. As I mentioned, we're just starting this. And so we're talking to as many people, but we are going to be having trials. So we're going to be sending life jackets that people are identifying as potentially helpful to fishermen to try them out at sea. And so we're doing that in Oregon and Washington. So if anyone's interested in trying it, over the next 6 months to a year. We know we want to do it in the different fisheries, so we can't do them all at once. And so we're trying to identify fishermen that would like to try one. So certainly that's an opportunity. And then we don't have our program going yet, but we hope very soon that we will identify what we need and the plan to get out to ports. And so as soon as we start that, we'll be doing a much more promotion of it. And so people will have somebody that they can contact, and maybe even somebody locally. And again, we're very fortunate in our area, and we're working with retailers in Washington, so that they can be the point, because that's already some place where the fishermen know to go buy their gear and stuff. And so hopefully when we begin formally collaborating with them, once we plan this, there'll be a way that fishermen could just go to their local England's or fisheries and go and try on styles maybe that they haven't historically carried, that we've identified that might be potential for fishermen.
Love that. And would West Marine be something that maybe? Okay, great. And then also, Chris and I were talking about the survival suits, and that there's actually maybe possibly loans or grants out there so fishermen can get new
what they need.
Yes. I was wondering, would that be possibly something that would be considered in this program?
Not specifically, but I know people who are working on work in this area. So I'll reach out to them and ask them about that. That's a great question. So I'll have to circle back and provide you and your listeners that information.
So we'd love that. I'll definitely put the Flip Resources website, which is so fully loaded with so much good stuff. I mean, YouTube videos, you name it. It got, like I mentioned, the downloadable PDFs. There's tips and tricks from experienced fishermen for new fishermen. I mean, it's like a little like intro Bible, if you will, for the commercial.
One thing I should also note, I'm working, as I mentioned, in the Pacific Northwest, but my colleagues on the East Coast, the Fishing Partnership Support Services, FPSS, they are also doing an equivalent program in their region with all the fisheries, and they do a lot of support for fishermen. And so your listeners should also know about them. And if they're in that region, in Massachusetts and Maine, and I believe they're even going south, they are also having this program and delivering, trying to identify life jackets and still continue the program that was started with the life jackets for lobstermen. They're continuing it there. So definitely check out them. I also collaborate with AMSEA, which is, out of Sitka, Alaska. And so they also have not quite the same program, but they have a ability when they're doing some trainings to get a rebate on getting life jackets. And so I'm not the only game in town. And certainly we're all networked together to try to support the community as a whole in all of our different regions. So
amazing. Are you going to be at PME this year?
I am. We're not going to have a booth again, but I'll be there. So I hope to see you there.
Yeah, definitely would love that. Actually, the Partners of Commercial Fishermen are taking over the National Fisherman booth. We're having a little Partner of Commercial Fishermen parlor, little chill zone. Well, we're going to be there on Wednesday, 3:45 to 4:45, and then Thursday, 3:45 to 4:45. So would love to have you and hang out.
I will definitely stop by and look for you.
Awesome. Great. And then I also want to say thank you so much for letting us have a seat at the table and hearing our voices, because, as we've been told, and we know, we are the backbone of the industry. There's not a lot of, thank you. We don't really get an opportunity to speak with others in the industry and express our heart and our love and, our concern. So thank you so much for putting us within this conversation.
Absolutely. It is so important. And I really appreciate your time and you talking with me.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to hang out at PME this year.
I hope to see many of your listeners there.
Yeah. And like I said, all the information will be in the show notes, and we'll just continue this open dialogue. It'll just keep on rolling. We can do whatever we can do to help. We are here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you want to connect further with others in our community, I'd love for you to join us in the private forum. The forum is a VIP members-only safe space for us to chat and relate with POCFs all over the world and share our thoughts and feelings without judgment, because we get you. There are also monthly Zoom calls where you can find answers, seek support, and receive guidance, plus giveaways and special offers that are only available for forum members. To learn more, go to meganwaldrop.com/private-forum. Thank you so much for listening to the Partners of Commercial Fishermen podcast. If you would like to support our community, please tap the subscribe button, share with family and friends, post on socials, or write a review. It would be so amazing. And if you're a POCF looking for more resources on how to navigate this unique lifestyle, things from long-distance dating to motherhood advice, visit meganwaldrop.com. We can't wait to connect with you. Thanks for listening today. Being here means you're a part of the POCF family, and we wouldn't be a community without you. I'm Megan, and this is the Partners of Commercial Fishermen podcast. As always, much love, POCF pride, and remember, you are not alone.